All right, Assalamu alaikum. So welcome today to our AMCF panel discussion on empowerment, financial empowerment for Muslim women through entrepreneurship. And it's an honor to be with a wonderful panelists and a moderator today. So our moderator will be Shazeen Mufti today. She is our current executive director at the American Muslim Community Foundation. Alhamdulillah. She is leading initiatives that strengthen community philanthropy and nonprofit impact. A change management consultant, she specializes in strategy, systems, and operations for mission-driven organizations. She previously served as Chief Operations Officer at Developments Literacy DIL, overseeing U.S. fundraising and Pakistan-based financial operations. Her background also includes leadership in community organizations and interfaith initiatives. She serves on the board of the Orange County Association of Fundraising Professionals and is an alum of George Washington University's Elliott School of International Affairs. So welcome. We also have today Farah Khan, who serves as the managing director of CORE CDC and is a community advocate, public servant, and entrepreneur with over 2 decades of experience across small business, municipal governance, corporate biotech, and nonprofit leadership. MashaAllah. She previously served as mayor of Irvine here in Southern California, where she advanced initiatives focused on innovation, sustainability, and inclusive community development. Farah is dedicated to empowering local voices and building stronger, more connected communities. So an honor. And we also have Fiona Motola, or Fiona Darsat, the founder and CEO of Lekker Kitchen, a California-based culinary venture bringing bold South African flavors to the community. Originally trained as a fashion designer, she transitioned into entrepreneurship through a successful catering business while raising her family. Cooking became both a creative outlet and a way to bring people together. She was a first place prize winner of the recent CORE CDC entrepreneurship program, where she further developed her business through training, mentorship, and a competitive pitch process. So welcome. And last but not least, we have Brother Riaz Surti, a long-time entrepreneur and currently the president and founder of Hearthy Foods, based here in Los Angeles. Hearthy Foods is a leading and first seller of halal wellness products. The business was founded on the principle of providing high-quality products for everyone. He was recently the judge of the CORE CDC Banking on Your Success pitch competition, which is the kind of the beginning point for the conversation today. So welcome, and I will hand it over to Shazeen to begin the panel.
Thank you, Lisa. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So glad you could join us. We wanted to have this conversation because we feel at AMCF that economic mobility is a strong focus that we should focus on at AMCF as a community and as an organization, and different things that we can do, especially entrepreneurship programs that help people develop and establish and grow their businesses is a core to that. Um, we were very fortunate to partner with CORE CDC with this project. And we'll tell you in a moment of the part we played, but mostly it was CORE CDC and their existing program. And we were just a partner in that. But to give us a background on that, Farah, if you can share with us a little bit more specifics around CORE CDC, what a community development corporation is, and then how the idea for this project came to you to initiate it.
Absolutely. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'll just start it with a little brief history about community development corporations. And they really came out of the civil rights era, where if you've seen well, how the Black community has always tried to become economically independent, but was failed by government and other agencies that continuously put them down and literally destroyed any economic viability that they had. So the churches started looking at ways that they could become the powerhouse to help communities, uplift communities when it came to economic development. And so they started forming community development corporations, which could then be certified as 501(c)(3)s, as nonprofits, able to get funding and able to be able to serve their underserved communities and underrepresented communities. And that's exactly what happened. And a lot of this came out of the AME churches. And so CORE CDC is out of Christ Our Redeemer AME Church here in Irvine. And their CDC started in 2001. And from there, in 2007, they started the CDC mainly for civic engagement, and that's the work that they've been doing. I'm a product of their civic engagement work. And so, in 2007, they started the Banking on Your Success entrepreneurship course, really to help communities understand the ins and outs of doing business and making sure that they were going to be successful, providing them with those micro grants to get them going, and then follow up with them along the way to make sure that they were successful. And then in 2012, they started a similar program with financial literacy and entrepreneurship for youth. And so getting into middle school and high schoolers, working with them to have them understand how banking works, to have them understand credit and balancing a budget and things like that. And then coming up with creative ideas for entrepreneurship as well. And besides this, we are at 5 different affordable housing properties where we provide resources and programs on site. And then we also have our workforce development program. And we continue our civic engagement with a monthly program called Real Talk, which I'd love for everyone to come to on April 30th in Irvine. We're doing a history of civil rights in Orange County with Groundswell. So it should be a good program at 5:30 p.m.
Great. And we will send that information out to this group and our entire group of, especially our Southern California people, so they can come support you. So tell me a little bit about this partnership and how that developed and the idea for it.
Absolutely. So we've been conducting our BYS, our Banking on Your Success entrepreneurship class. We do about 2 to 3 cohorts a year. And I think Shazeen, you and I were talking about opportunities and the interest in bringing Muslim women, especially, to have economic freedom. And from that conversation, one thing after another, and I went back and I talked to our team and I said, hey, we have this opportunity. We're going to partner up with another organization. What do you guys think? And they loved it. And honestly, it has been one of the greatest experiences. This cohort was just amazing.
And I think we thought the same thing. So it's like, partnerships and collaborations are hard, but this one, alhamdulillah, was very smooth and easy. And we really enjoy working with you and your team. And a great shout out to Lisa who made it all happen.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Well, we'll get your comments here in a little bit too. But I think you know, um, it's one thing of having an idea, it's another to make it happen, right? And so um, I think the success of it was you had an existing program, right? And we just layered on top of that is pull in our group, right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so, that way it's not like we were competing on programming, but also there was something that we actually layered and added to the programming as far as the banking part
Yes.
specifically.
Yes.
Could you share how that
That
went?
was interesting. I mean, because we hadn't done it before, in our general program, but coming up with a way where it was Sharia compliant banking and funding was really interesting because our course is 6 weeks usually, but this was 7 weeks because of that component that we added in. And I think it was really helpful for everyone because not only are you getting the traditional options, but you're getting options that align with our values and our beliefs. So uh, it, I think the hardest part was kind of figuring out how to interject that in the whole program, but it worked out really well, and I think the participants appreciated it.
Great. Okay, so thank you. And then I want to go over to um, Riaz, and if you could talk about you were a judge for this, where you got to sit in on the final competition of the participants that wanted to participate in the pitch, and tell us a little bit about your background and your entrepreneurship and how that led to you, and the components of that you brought into the judging.
Well, my background is I bought my first restaurant when I was 18 years old, right? Okay, and it was a KFC franchise. Okay, and I remember having this restaurant, And I knew that there was no one else who was going to help me. And what happened was I had bought this restaurant and I had no real like family support in that sense because my dad had passed away a month prior to the restaurant purchase, right? Or after the restaurant purchase. So and I just knew that that failure was not an option for me, right? So okay, and there was no plan B. Okay, and so I remember it was this KFC that had it was kind of older, but I had 2 years experience working as a kid there, and then and I remember there was a moment where like I just told my mom, I got this. I think I really can. I'll be able to take care of this business, right? And one thing I learned this concept called ABC, which is always be cool. Okay, so it's a very good quality to have in your life, but especially in business, right? Because in the end, right? Okay, if you're cool, you don't get pissed off, you don't get angry, and you're also a calm person, right? Okay, and people will start to have confidence, in business, especially in business, right? So from that one restaurant, it became two restaurants. The two restaurants became three restaurants, then three restaurants became four restaurants, right? Then I started doing Taco Bell as well. Okay, and then I remember at one point, like back in the 90s, there wasn't many halal American food options. So it's just mainly like, either Pakistani food or maybe I remember Islamic Chinese was a big novelty back then. Oh man, we have Islamic Chinese food. Wow. Okay. And then so I remember like when I was doing Halal KFC, people would drive from all corners of LA, and even from San Diego, all corners of Southern California, just to come to that restaurant, right? Okay, and then we had a Taco Bell, KFC, right? A two-in-one, so people were getting, halal Taco Bell for the first time ever, right? Okay, and so like, and then and one of the reasons why I sold the restaurant is because I got a really abrupt call from KFC saying that I need to discontinue the halal food program. Okay, and so I just knew, and when I got that abrupt call, it was I happened to be at Hajj, and I had one of those brick phones, right? Okay, back, and I was in front of the Kaaba Sharif, and I just knew that was a sign from Allah that this is might be might be end of the road with KFC with me, right? And I really missed it, I really loved that franchise, but what ended up happening for me was it ended up happening to be the best thing ever happened to me because soon after I sold it in 2005, I think KFC just went downhill completely after like 4 or 5 years. I think Cane's Fried Chicken came in, Dave's Hot Chicken, Chick-fil-A, Wingstop completely upended KFC in every way, right? So okay, and so Allah saved me, and then from that business, I started doing frozen food. I started doing samosas for Whole Foods and Costco and Sam's Club, and then after I sold that company, and then I started doing desserts for Vaughn, Safeway, Albertsons, like gluten-free desserts. And then then the company I'm doing now is called Hearty Foods. We do supplements for Vaughn's. We do supplements like collagen, gelatin, creatine, whey protein, and so it's really just a completely a different business altogether. But the one thing I would tell you is that I don't think you should never look at things that you should always keep going, never stop in business, right? Okay, and then as far as this judging this competition, I remember I saw all these different people that came in and have beautiful ideas, good ideas, right? Okay, and there's all people from different levels of experience, right? But I remember when Fiona spoke, I remember she was really offering a solution, right? Okay, and when you think of your business as offering a solution, that's when you know you'll be successful. So I hope I kind of give you in a nutshell my history and then why and my experience with it being a judge.
Great. Thank you. And I'll come back to you in just a little bit. So Fiona, we know you were the top contestant and you won the main prize. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you started the business that you presented at the competition.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So yes, hi everyone. My name is Fiona. Interesting fact about me, I'm the CEO and founder of Lekker Kitchen. And the way my business started was, I used to drive over 100 miles a day. I would wake up at 4 a.m. as the school hot lunch lady at my kids' school, and I would prepare the hot meals. And then I would get in the car, would take my kids to school, and then come back. I would load the car and then get to school at 10 a.m. to serve the lunch for the kids, And then I would stay back until 6 p.m. because I was the debate coach as well as the science fair coordinator. And by the time I would get home, we would be so exhausted. And some days my family would eat cereal or scrambled eggs for dinner. And it's not because I didn't care. It's because, like so many families, eating halal was not an option. And there were no places that had halal food anywhere near where we lived. And I remember thinking, I wish they could be a halal certified, wholesome, delicious, nutritious meal available in supermarkets and stores that was convenience for busy families and individuals. And yeah, that was actually the premise of how Like a Kitchen began. It was an idea in my mind from 17 years ago. And I based it off of my lived experience as a busy mom raising kids in the United States. So, that's a little bit about my background here at Like a Kitchen. And yeah, pretty much that's.
And tell us about the foods that that you have available and what form they're in and all that fun
Okay,
stuff.
so actually interesting fact, we're the first Hafsa Halal certified woman-owned CPG brand in the nation. So we actually a food manufacturing company, and at Like a Kitchen, we manufacture frozen meals that are convenient for busy families and individuals. So we currently have 13 products in our line, and we were fortunate enough to showcase our range of products at a recent expo that showcases CPG brands. We have things like piri piri chicken and rice. We use South African nomenclature on all our products. So even though, because culturally I'm Gujarati, but I'm born and raised South African. My family's been in South Africa for almost 5 generations. And I immigrated to the United States 26 years ago. So we are very much a third culture brand because I've got a little bit of my Indian culture, my South African heritage, and then having lived here for 26 years, there's a lot of fusion flavors that we put into our meal. So it's made with a lot of love, made from scratch, delicious, for everybody, for every family, for every palate. So we took that into account and we tried to manufacture and produce a premium halal product for busy individuals and families.
That's great. And so right now, are you local in Southern California? Or like where are your products?
So actually, you can find us online and you can also come to our kitchen. We base locally in California, but we've up until this point, actually up until this week, we've been shipping throughout the West Coast. But starting in the first week of May, Leco Kitchen will be shipping nationally. So you'll be able to purchase our products from anywhere in the US and we'll send it right to you.
That's great. That's great. Okay. I wanted to find out from you, um, do you feel like this cohort was different than your other cohorts, right? This one filled with 30 Muslim women. Was it different than the cohorts? Because I think this is your first all women cohort,
Yes.
right? Because you've
Yeah.
had like a co-ed. So how is this different?
It was different because I think in our other cohorts, you'll see smaller groups kind of forming or people teaming up with one another, kind of, being these buddies. But in this group, it was all women, and this is the first time we've done it. And we saw the camaraderie between the women, which is really amazing. So for me, it was like, if someone was struggling a little bit, you'd have 3 or 4 other women jumping in, kind of supporting or giving ideas and giving suggestions. And I love that because, it's not just learning from the instructor, but it's also learning from one another that helps during this course. So I love the fact that everyone was there to support one another. There was this built-in camaraderie, cheering each other on, and that was awesome to see.
Right. And I know you guys have created because I'm on it as well, the WhatsApp group. So I keep hearing people's, what's going on in their lives, their successes, what they're going through. And what's wonderful, I see people sharing resources, right?
Yes. And
To
that's a continuation of it, right?
Yeah.
It's creating, because we usually do like either a text group or an email group. But for this group, they all wanted to be on WhatsApp. So we're like, all right, we'll create a WhatsApp group. And it's wonderful to see. I'll peek in there every now and then too. And I love that they're sharing resources or upcoming events or where they're going to be so we can all go out and support. I think it's wonderful to have that continuation of team building and of being supportive to one another because it goes a long way.
Right. And And there was no issue in having an all women's group, like with your organization and all that?
Not at all. In fact, it was not only welcome, but it's an added benefit for us because now, as we have to report out our demographics and the communities that we're serving, the emphasis on women is absolutely a place where there is a great need. And so it was a benefit for everyone.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And like I said, it's a wonderful to be, to be in that group and the sharing and stuff like that. So I know I've enjoyed that. Like, what was your biggest learning lesson from this whole project?
I think it was just understanding how diverse when it comes to business ideas that our community has to offer, right? From someone that is working on documents, filling out documents for people that don't understand how to fill out documents, to food production, to real estate, to medical, to just, the ideas were so immense. And I was just like, wow, like look at all of these ideas that are coming forth. And they're from all over the place. And then to see them hone in on exactly what they wanted to focus on and present on their products or their services. I think that was really amazing. And it's so you can't say that, women are interested in one type of business or not. These women were incredible. They were interested in all sorts of business ideas. And I think that goes to show that, we can't put limits on anyone.
Right. Thank you. So Riaz, from your perspective, what was your learning like Farah said, like I know I myself thought, wow, what a diverse group of not only women, I mean diversity, as women, but then also diversity of business ideas.
Well, I think the female perspective is a really powerful perspective, right? Okay, because like think about all the different brands we have because of especially Muslim women in e-commerce. So I'll give you an example. Huda Beauty, that came because she was an influencer on social media, right? And she basically highlighted this massive market for Muslim women influencers or just Muslim women in general around the world, right? Okay, that's one. And then there's another company. I think it's called Zara, the label. Okay, she's out of Irvine, right? And she came out with a whole line of hijabs. Okay, and there's this one girl that presented at the last event that I went to where I was a judge. She was talking about having hijabs that weren't made from any kind of polyester blend or something or some sort of artificial like fabric made from real fabric. That way, it's cooler and it's a lot. These things I would never have thought of as a man, right? I'm supposed to know how hijab feels, right? Okay, and okay, so but I think ultimately, when you have women starting businesses, they bring their own insight, and then I'll give you one personal example. Like I remember growing up, and my mom would make ghee. Like she would take butter and put it on the stove and be making ghee, and I had no idea why she was doing that. Why are you taking butter, putting it on in a big pot, okay, and cooking it? It makes no sense. Okay, but from looking back on it, if she had went to a program, the one that Lisa and Farah and this whole thing organized, right? Ghee would have been, ghee is a massive business, right? And everyone else, it's this anyhow, I was really flabbergasted. I was so honored to be part of that. Okay, and to see all these different ideas. And I'm the only guy there, by the way. Just kind of weird, but
That's true.
I'm the only person there. So like, but if in some way it was so insightful and so inspiring to see women doing this, right? Okay,
Right.
and my whole life's all about helping people, right? To be honest with you, my whole life is about that, and I think that one of the reasons why we as a community, if we have this abundance mentality of helping each other, right? It only it's like passing a baton on, and it just makes us all go faster, and we all win as a team.
And that's why we love bringing people together, right? The like-minded and diverse perspectives, right? That's very important to us. And you having that experience in entrepreneurship was so important. What do you feel like the best lesson you learned as an entrepreneur as you were developing your
Well,
businesses, I should say?
I think like I remember there are moments when like I always would say to myself, that was I would wake up that morning as a business person. What kind of problem am I gonna have today? And how am I going to solve it? Okay, so it's because every day you're gonna have a problem, right? So like, and then you get to say that about your life as well, right? Okay, so I would just frame problems in a different way. I would just frame it in the sense, okay, well, what problem am I going to solve today? Okay, so as a business person, if you start thinking like that, then I think it's a reframing of your life, right? Okay, and so I remember like when I had the KFC, because there's different stages, right? And when I had the KFC, like basically my goal was I can't, like, when you have a kind of restaurant, your goal is to bring as many people as you can to your restaurant, right? Either you offer a discount or you do marketing or whatever it is, right? So I remember when I was doing it, my goal was to bring KFC to the people. So and I would start doing catering and deliveries and doing all that kind of stuff, right? Okay, and then then when I had when I was doing samosas for Whole Foods, but I remember like the biggest issue was how do I get a machine that can mimic the hand folding process of samosas, right? Okay, so I remember like doing some research, and I found one Japanese company that was doing egg roll machines, right? Can I tell them, can you redesign it to make it do samosas where like I was just flap in and make like a folded samosa, and they did it for me, right? And I remember when I was doing gluten-free desserts, right? How am I going to do that? So like, and I remember like being of Indian background, I remember like no, just, instead of using like traditional rice flour, brown rice flour to make pie shells. So let me just try to use chana flour, like garbanzo bean flour. Okay, and then I would mix it with rice flour and have a nice crispy texture to it. Okay, it'd be a brownish color, right? So it's just stuff like that. I think ultimately you just gotta look at every situation as a business person, and even your life is focused on the solution. Don't focus on the problem. Okay, and as an entrepreneur, that's really the key. So if you just gotta reframe everything. It's not a problem. So it's your problem to solve. I think that's the way you gotta look at it in entrepreneurship, right? And then now I ended with this one little thing, right? I think being a business person is like it's like building a muscle. The more you do it, the stronger you become, and the better you get at it. And eventually, you'll have a lot of muscles on you, and you'll be able to handle anything.
Right. So when you were judging, like, were you surprised with anything that like you said, like some of the businesses were so different, and like you were saying, as a man, you certain things that you didn't even know that you needed to be concerned about, that could be businesses. I was just wondering, like, what we talked about, there were so many different types of businesses. Were there some that I, what I found was interesting is that we're all kind of at a different stage. Some were very new, very just ideas, right? And then we had some that were ready businesses, ready for the next stage. Were there any ideas you saw that you maybe weren't fully fleshed out as businesses that you thought could really make it if they, had they the right training and experience?
There's like I remember one as far as the female perspective, the hijab thing, it was kind of unique. It was kind of
The
an eye
organic
opener,
cotton
right?
hijab, yeah, that was very,
Yeah,
very
and then
creative.
but I also thought there was a lady who was doing who had a bakery, and she was doing catering, right? And she had a cupcake or something. She was doing desserts, and she was trying to sell it to different Yemeni coffee shops, Okay, and I remember that was kind of distinct, because she was and but what made it unique was the fact that she is reinventing herself. She's like a homemaker, I guess. Okay, and then she started to become a businessman, and her husband's doing all the deliveries, right? So, I think that was kind of unique, right? Okay, and then when I heard Fiona's the presentation, she was pretty established. She was able to check all the boxes. But the reason why we like Fiona a lot is because there was an actionable item, where she said, if I get the money, I'll be able to do the show and be able to represent my brand at this really massive show that all the different buyers of the country are there, right? So okay, but to answer your question, is there anything unique, that I saw, right? And different, but I saw that the people are at different stages, okay, and I don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think it matters where you are in your business life. All that matters is where you're going to end.
Right.
And so that's really it. So like, and say as long as you end I know, I think there's a really good poet. I mean, a poet. I think I'm not sure if he said this or not, but it says better to love and lost than not loved at all, right? Okay,
Right.
like it's better to do business and lost and then never try anything at all. Okay,
Right.
I'm just reframing that, right? But
Right.
it's better to try. Okay, and in the end, that's really to me that's success. Okay, and that's it.
Right.
And also we're all here for you. Anybody that wants to start a business, right? No, Fiona's here for you. Farah's here for you. Shazine's here for you. Lisa, we're all here for you, right? So, no, you're not alone. Okay, so and then, no, hopefully anyone wants my number or wants to contact me, and I'll give you an example. Like, who's heard of Kanafa Queen, Fatima Williams, right? She came to me 10 years ago, and she said, "I want to try selling Kanafa. What's the best way to do it?" I just told her to sell it on your Instagram page. And that was it. And that's all she wrote. Now she's like Miss Dubai Bling now, I guess. She's very popular, I guess. Okay, so
Yes. Yes,
yeah,
very popular.
yeah.
Um, so what would you say to yourself when you were that 17-year-old self or 18-year, whatever you were when you started?
Yeah.
What's the best advice you can give and encouragement you could give that young man?
I wish, yeah, I wish, I mean, I'll say what my friend told me once. I have a really good friend. He's a college friend of mine, right? I asked him the same thing. I asked him, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self? And he said something to me that was really, really profound, right? And his name was Amr Zia, by the way. Okay, and anyway, so he said that I wish I was more pious.
Mm,
Okay, and in some way, I think it's kind of like because I think if you're pious, because what happens is there's two realities: the reality we see and the reality we don't see. Okay, and if you start praying and asking Allah for help, right? The doors of barakat comes to your life, right? Okay, and so I think if you just think in that context that Allah controls it all, is this is His mulk, His dominion, right? Then you don't, as a business person, as an entrepreneur, we have this level of trust. Okay, and I think that's the key, right? Okay, so part of being successful in business is having to walk on Allah, right? And then I remember I had one consultant I hired about 5, 6 years ago, and I asked and he asked me something, and I said, what do you want to know? And he said, how do you have such a high risk tolerance in business? And I said, it's not risk tolerance, it's I have high tawakkul on Allah. So that's really what it is. So I have a lot of tawakkul on Allah, and then you'll be successful because this is Allah's world, right? And we're just in it.
thank you. I appreciate that. Lisa, we've been talking about the different participants, and could you share with us who the three highest vote getters were and what those businesses were?
Sure. For the first one was Fiona with the Lekker Kitchen, was I guess the highest vote getter for our pitch competition. Second place was Rena Hamwe with Heavenly Bites. And the third one, she's still kind of working on her business licensing and stuff. I'm not sure if she actually had the final business name. Do you remember, Farah, what the final business name for her was?
I don't think so. It was something like document preparation or something. Like, she didn't have like a name, but she was already doing some of the work, but she just needs to formalize it into a business.
Yeah, and that was kind of why she was attending, is to kind of go from what she's doing kind of ad hoc. So yeah, she's still in the process of getting her licensing and her website. All of that hasn't been formalized yet.
But it's a document preparation, right? Especially for immigrant communities who need help with like English.
Yeah, specifically
Mhm.
for English and Spanish speaking individuals.
And I think she
It's
had some
completely
Arabic
different,
Yep.
I mean,
services
that was
as
the
well.
primary. She had
Yeah.
additional interpreters with her, but primarily assisting people in addition to the document preparation, but there's a lot of learning. It's not the easiest thing to get certain papers filed with the government. So hand in hand,
Mhm.
walking them through, getting them from filling out the paper to which agency, which hours, which department. That, in the US, if you're not familiar, even if you are familiar with our system, it's not easy to navigate, especially if you're kind of in crisis mode, you're going through troubles and difficulties. So she's really not just assisting with the paperwork, but assist in the process to enable people to get through the process and get the end result, whether it's a marriage or divorce or a successful business or a visa, whatever it is, but trying to, hold people's hands so they can get through it with a, lend, supportive ear, supportive hand along the way.
So Lisa, since you help coordinate all this, bring everything together and make it happen, what what were your, what did you learn through this whole process?
Well, it was very exciting. I know at the beginning, when we were first talking with Farah, I was like, okay, can we actually fill the room with 30 women? And I was pretty confident, but as the beginning, the numbers were kind of slow. I was like, oh my goodness, did I, underthink this? But luckily, fortunately, there was a demand. We completely filled the program before the deadline. And there were people that wanted to join, and we basically had to turn them away. And as I meet going outreach with different things for AMCF, there's more and more ladies that are starting a business, thinking about it. And I keep saying, oh, just wait, we're going to be working with FAR again to have this other opportunity. There's a huge number of Muslims in Southern California that can do this. Many people, they don't necessarily want to work for others. They want to work for themselves, or they have their own full-time career. They want to start something else to better serve their family needs, serve their community, have a passion within them that I think Brother Riaz spoke about, that, it's not just some of it is you want to give back, but others, they have a passion for something that their day job or being a homemaker is not fulfilling. So many reasons the women, and I think there is like diversity, it's diversity of ideas, but also diversity of whys, why different women wanted to join this program. Many different whys from, there was one lady who's retired, she's at the end of her career of her day job, and now she's wanting to launch a healthy snack business, to the young entrepreneur, or to somebody else was actually in a CDC program herself, but is looking to have a better program or an opportunity for the community that she already is serving, but more as a more robust business. So wide range of interests that women had, and that in itself was also very interesting. Such a huge need in the community, but a much more diverse need than one would have thought of.
Right. And I know for myself, I worked for nonprofits for many years. And then when my son was younger, I set up a consulting practice. I was an entrepreneur, right? All the way up till now. And it allowed me to be that parent that I wanted to be, and, do things on my own terms and make my hours. And so there's many different reasons, but I do feel like especially for moms, Muslim moms, that, that it is a great opportunity to help create something that serves your needs rather than you serving, others' hours and stuff like that. At AMCF, we're very proud that we work with quite a few working moms, right? And we allow them to do their hours that is, beneficial to them and their child rearing. So I wish I had that opportunity when my son was younger, but there's ways we can do, it's not only what we put out there, it's how we, use our own values to run our own organizations as well. So we need to be able to allow that, because there's so much talent out there, right? And we can have that entrepreneurial spirit within an organization as well, and to help it grow and to think outside the box and all these things. So I think that's very important.
There were a
So,
couple questions in the
sure.
chat. If you want to, I
Yeah,
don't know
I
if Farah
see.
or Riaz could address. I know there was questions on the types of businesses that were discussed in the cohort, as well as how to find Muslim investors. And I'm sure that would also lead to Muslim financing. So
Yeah, let me cover our questions, and then we'll leave some time at the end to answer some of these questions. So, Fiona, I wanted to ask you what you learned through the program, because you already had an established business, but like what parts of, and what components of the course did you most benefit from? Did you find that was a little different than, other information you had?
So actually, I love this question. I have so much to say. After Riyaz spoke and Farah spoke too, I was making notes, And right off the bat, I want to say that this program, I wish I had had this program when I started my business or before starting my business. It would have saved me, first of all, a lot of money, because I was a stay-at-home mom. I had never been in business before. I didn't have the skills or the know-how of how to start a business, how to register my business, how to, apply for a business license, how to pay my taxes. I had no idea. I'd never had to do any of these things or learn any of these skills prior to starting Lekker Kitchen. And when I saw the program, it was because Sister Lisa had shared it in one of the groups. And I was like, you know what? Even though I had an established business, Lekker Kitchen I'd already been in business for close to a year. So the initial steps of registering a business and all of these things, and the mission statement and the business plan, I'd already had those for Lekker Kitchen. But still, I found this program to be so beneficial. And I would encourage so many women or any woman that even has an idea of wanting to be a business owner to join this program. I mean, all I had to do was show up on a Saturday morning for 7 weeks for free, you know, and attend the class and listen to women teach us how to start a business. It was phenomenal. I benefited so much from this class. I took notes as though I had never had a business before. And then, to be honest with you, on the seventh day of the pitch, I was actually not going to pitch for my business because they were amazing ideas. They were women with such great, small ideas, big ideas that they had, like Sister Lisa and Farah and both you, Sister Shirley, might mention, And I thought, I'm not going to pitch because I would like to give these women an opportunity to take this money and start their business idea. But the day before the pitch competition, I had this opportunity to attend the expo. And as a company being bootstrapped in the first year, I was like, oh my gosh, we could really use this money right now. And so I pitched my business, and Alhamdulillah, I was able to win. And one of the things that when I was watching the other ladies, something that I learned from the program, and hopefully if you would give me an opportunity, in the future, as a way of giving back and supporting this incredible program that you ladies have started, is I would very much like to help the ladies develop their pitch so that they know what they're pitching towards. Because it's not just about pitching an idea. You have this money. What are you going to do with this money? This is like, you have to be very direct. And I think, honestly, I think that was one of the reasons that I probably won, is because I was pitching to the audience. I knew who I was pitching to, and I knew the value of the money that I would be receiving, and what I was going to do with that, solving the problem. And I think that's what gave me an edge. And so many of those women, they have this idea, they're learning how to start their business, but at the same time, they need to be able to put themselves out there and pitch for their business, because no idea is too small. Every single story matters. What you want to do is take your story and show how it matters and what you can do for the community.
That's great. So this is going to be my final question to you.
Okay, sure.
Where are you now? This
Okay.
was a few weeks ago. What did
Yes.
you do with your winnings?
Okay.
And where are you now?
So Lekker Kitchen was able to use the money that we won at the pitch competition and apply it to, booth participation, travel logistics, but product sampling at the Natural Expo West, which is what we were pitching for to begin with. And it doesn't just end there. It's not that we were able to receive this money and then apply to say exactly what I said, product sampling, travel. It was also creating momentum for my company, exposing us on a national level. And as a result of being able to, receive this money and have the opportunity to attend the expo, we were able to create so many leads for our company to create growth moving forward. So while it seems like just a small amount, it's not. It's huge. We were able to do so much with that money. It's able to make us grow so much, and I appreciate. I mean, this was one of the unseen blessings, to be honest with you. A door that Allah opened for me at a time when I thought that this was an opportunity that we wouldn't even be able to have as a new company, and pitching to the core CDC program and winning that money gave me so much confidence, as an entrepreneur, that wow, people actually love my idea. It validated me, validated my company, made me believe in it. And I was able to take that confidence and apply it in so many other areas for the business so that we can grow. And I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being part of the competition, and thank you for the opportunity to be part. When we were doing the final judging, we really said, like, where can we put this money so it would be the best benefit and help whatever business that we chose for the top three to get to the next level. So hearing that from you means so much to us. And Farah, I wanted to wrap up with you and your thoughts on this. Thank you.
No, absolutely. I think, one of the goals that we always have is providing that initial micro grant to get people either started or to the next level, get that momentum going. And not only that, but we have partnerships where throughout the year opportunities for grants come up, and only those that have gone through our program are eligible. And so it's the added benefit. And then not only that, but throughout the year, we're also doing our boot camps, which are, a few hours of something specific. So we've done something with HR, we've done something with AI and digital tools. The last one we did, we had folks from Sacramento come out and talk about building resiliency in your business. And the next one that's coming up in May, we're doing reinsurance, which is a new thing that is applicable to a lot of small businesses that I didn't even understand in the beginning. But now we've got people that are coming in to talk about what does reinsurance mean and how does it apply to certain small businesses and how you benefit from it. So we're continuously educating our community to make sure that they have the tools and the resources that they need, because it's not a one-stop situation. It's a continuous journey, and we want to be there for them throughout that journey.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, panel. Really appreciate all your input and for this program and, hopefully the next. With that, I want to go ahead and take some questions, and hopefully you guys can, Lisa, can you help direct the questions and who they were for? You're on mute.
So one of them was on regarding Muslim investors. If there's any suggestions, perhaps that's Riaz.
As far as Muslim investors, I think there's different playbooks. Remember, whenever you get an investor, you're also giving a part of your company away, which means you're giving up control, right? So I think initially, I think when you know, I'll just give an example of everyone know who Portos is, Portos Bakery. It's a very popular bakery in LA, right? Okay, and they started from Glendale, and I happened to meet her when I was a young man, right? Okay, and she was making cakes out of her house. Okay, so and she was baking cakes from her oven, and she was just baking cake, and then she used the proceeds from those sales to invest in her company, right? Okay, and so but it all depends. Like there's different playbooks you can take, right? So if you're willing to get investors, right, it just means more pressure and less and less control, right? Okay, and so but sometimes I always believe that I don't mind taking investors as long as I know just that I know that this product that I'm doing or this business I'm doing is going to make money. Okay, so sometimes you get investors and you haven't proven that you can sell it on your own at first, right? And I'll give you an example, like whenever I launch a product for myself, I always just start off small. Like I'll start off doing creatine. I'll just do if I can sell 100 bags, I know I can sell 1,000 bags. Okay, so I'll just start off small. Okay, and then if you know you can sell it, then you can start investing in it, right? Okay, because when you have investors, it's a whole new set of challenges that you have to face, right? And nothing wrong with the challenges. It just means that you have to be able to address that, right? Okay, and especially it's hard to address that issue if it's a failing concept. It's really, really bad, right? So as long as you know that that your proof of concept is there, that business is going to work, okay, and you're pretty sure because you sold XYZ amount of products, then you should take on investors, right? But start small, let it grow organically, okay, and then just go from there. So,
I'd like to add to that if I may.
Sure.
yeah.
So another thing about investors is I think it's very important for you to be very certain on what your non-negotiables are in a business, so that you're able to align with the right investor and not bring in somebody where you're giving away equity in a business that changes the essence of your company. So, the idea of having an investor, um, it seems great, but you have to be very certain that this is something that you want to do. So yeah, I mean, it goes back to what Riaz was saying about having tawakkul. If you really believe in your idea, do not doubt for 1 second as Allah as the greater investor, because Allah is abundant. Allah wants to give us. Reach out, wake up for tahajjud, make your dua. You will not believe the doors that open for you when you set your mind on something and you ask Allah for His help. You'll see some crazy things happening. It's pretty cool.
I agree with both of them. I think one of the advices that we always give folks is, raise money within your family, within your friends, get yourself up and going. This idea of having an investor come in, you really are giving up control of your business. And it depends on, who the investor is, what their intentions are, and they get upset if you're not producing, if you're not, building that ROI for them. So I'll always be wary of seeking investors in the get-go. So, once you're getting bigger and you have more control and you're more firm, if you need them, sure. But otherwise, starting off, I would avoid seeking out investors.
Yeah,
And
sounds
you
good.
could use us, you could call us, and we'll help you evaluate. We're here for you.
That's a great option. Thank you. Any other questions, Lisa? Nice.
There's a comment about Kiva in the chat. Is 0% interest in a community element involvement?
And I mean, there are some like entrepreneurship programs, like I know Grameen America does small business, they call them loans, but very low or no interest. And the whole idea is to pay it back, right? But you pay it back, it's kind of like a pay forward, right? So it's like people invest in you and then you invest back with them. And so I do like that model. And so, so there are some creative models that, we will look into to see how we can incorporate some of these kinds of things into some of the programs that we do and, be able to get some grants and stuff like that. But I too agree that, sometimes people see all the benefit of investment without all of the what you give up, right? And so evaluate it carefully. But if the time you spend in trying to get investors, if you just spend on your own business, you probably get a better rate of return, right? Of spend that time investing in yourself, investing in your business in the sense of time and doing things, right? I think that's a better, but yeah, like I said, there are some, and Kiva and Grameen America, those are nonprofit, right, that are helping, especially with microloans, which we've seen internationally do great things of microloans and things like that. And it was part of, we had some of those when I was working in international education. We actually gave some microloans to mothers of some of our students. And so I've seen some success with that. But here it's less so, but there are some opportunities there. So anything else? Oh, I think we're at time, so if we can take maybe one more question if someone has it. If not, then we will say thank you to our panel, thank you to our participants, and I know a lot of people signed up, so they'll be watching this on recording. So thank you so much for your time. So appreciate all your efforts in making this program a success. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you so
I'll
much.
be looking
Thank
forward to
you.
getting the next dates for the cohort from Farah. So hopefully,
Yes, we'll
by the end
work
of the
on
year,
those.
Yes.
Absolutely.
and then we'll be sharing that out with everybody.
All right. Thank you so
All right,
much.
thank you.
All right. Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome.
Welcome.